Hey, what's going on everyone? Axel here. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to go through every adventure pack in DDO. We're going to give you a quick rundown of which adventure packs are good buys, which ones you may want to avoid buying, which adventure packs might offer some useful loot, which ones are the more popular ones, just some general guidance. This video is specifically for new players who are looking to buy packs. Or just looking to buy more content and want to know what to buy and why. It's a very common question. I did make a video on this about, 3 years ago or so, and this is kind of an updated version of that. I thought I would just open up a new account in game so that I can see all the content. This is what you all will be looking at when you buy packs, and we'll just go through them starting with the low levels. So before we go through them, I guess first of all, hi, if you're new, my name's Axel. I've been making DDO content on YouTube since 2014. If you want to check out more of my beginner guide videos, I'll link that below in the description. You also could do me a favor and hit subscribe. I'd really appreciate that if you want to consider doing that. A couple other things, I guess, before we get to the adventure packs, very, very important disclaimers. In DDO, for the past few years, they've given out a free coupon code for the content. So what they've done each of the past 2 years, as of the recording of this video, is they've offered this code you could put in and it gives you all the adventure packs for free. It's kind of been a promotion with DDO to try to attract new players, and they only offer that code for a limited time. So one thing you want to consider when buying content is that they could offer all this stuff for free. The adventure packs, not the expansions, but the adventure packs, they could offer all that for free if they decide to bring that coupon code back. Now, we don't know when they're going to bring that back or if they're going to bring that back. They could never bring it back. They could bring it back a month from now. They could bring it back 2 years from now. We don't know. It's not guaranteed. So just keep that in mind. You may want to consider perhaps a VIP sub instead if you just want to get into some packs now, but you're not sure if they're going to, you're not sure if you want to wait. Maybe you do want to wait to see if that coupon code comes back. VIP is an option. So if you go VIP, that's basically renting the content. So you get, with your VIP sub, access to all the adventure packs, not the expansions, but all the adventure packs. You also don't get access to all of the races, so keep that in mind as well. But as far as content goes, with VIP, you get access to all the regular adventure packs, and you also get tons of other perks with VIP. I'm not going to go through those. You might want to check out the DDO Wiki or other videos I've done on VIP in the past. But that's an option if you want to just look at all the content. A couple other things to consider. So there are sales and promotions, so double bonus points. So to purchase these packs through the store, you need to buy DDO points for real money, obviously. And sometimes they offer bonus points. So what that means is they'll give you extra points when you buy a pack of points, and they tend to do that periodically. So you could wait for a point sale to get more bang for your buck. They also offer sales on content, so both adventure packs and expansions. So content in DDO, by the way, is split into adventure packs and expansions, so just keep that in mind. Expansions you don't get with VIP, adventure packs you do. That's the main difference. There's also some other restrictions on when or expansions are offered. They usually, there's a 6-month period between offering them in the store for DDO points versus buying them for real money. There's usually a wait for that in between there, so keep that in mind as well. But anyways, from time to time, DDO will offer sales on both all this content, so expansions and adventure packs. So yeah, it's a good idea in DDO to wait for a sale if you want to, say, buy an expansion. They tend to offer these sales that they never announce when, but if you look at previous history, they tend to do sales. They have summer sales. They also have probably the biggest sales of the year are around the winter fall holidays, so like Black Friday through Christmas. Oftentimes you'll see big sales on expansions and adventure packs. So if you want some content but you don't necessarily need it right now, you can hold off and wait for a sale to see if something pops up. Expansion content is also offered directly for purchase for real money, so you don't have to buy. You can buy it through the store after it's been out for 6 months. You can buy it for DDO points, but you can always buy it, and you have to buy it if you want to acquire it prior to 6 months from release. You need to buy it through DDO.com. So another important thing to keep in mind, if you buy it off of DDO.com, which is called the DDO market, you get other bonuses. So you might get like bonus hirelings. You might get a bonus autos box, which is like a little box with all kinds of goodies in it. You might get, it depends. You might get a race included for free. So there's a lot of bonus. You might get cosmetics as well. So there's a lot of bonuses offered in the different versions of the expansions in the DDO market versus if you buy them through the DDO store, you're only going to get the content. So you might, if you want to buy an expansion, check out what's offered on DDO.com and compare it to this. See if you might want to go for a bundle. There's always different tiers of bundles. There's usually 3 tiers for expansions, like a lower base bundle, and then it goes all the way up to a higher tier one that gives you more goodies. So keep that in mind. Next thing to keep in mind is DDO has a free-to-play model. The way that works is tons of free content is offered at lower levels, and then as you get like halfway through the game, it starts to taper off. But DDO does have a lot of free content. So up until level 17 or so, there's plenty of free-to-play content to play. Now, DDO, as of the recording of this video, has a level 32 cap. So essentially, you can play through like half the game and not have to pay anything, especially the first 10, 15 levels. There's a lot of free-to-play content. So if you're brand new, you don't need to buy anything yet. You can hop in, see if you like the game, give it a chance before you buy content. Another thing to keep in mind is that you earn DDO points in this game. You can earn points, so DDO points, by just playing the game. So for every 100 favor, and I'll explain that in just a second, every 100 favor you earn in-game, you get 25 DDO points. There's also some bonuses where you get extra points if you get first-time favor on a server by server basis, but in any case, generally you get 100. For every 100 favor, you get 25 DDO points. So you can just play the game and earn points. A lot of people do that. You can earn points to get packs. So 100 favor is about, it varies by content, but it's about 8 to 12 quests. If you complete that on Elite, you get full favor, and for every 8 to 12 quests or so that you complete on Elite or higher, you can essentially get 25 DDO points. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You can earn stuff while playing. You can also, that favor, you get it, you can re-earn it again on the same character, so you get more points by reincarnating or by creating a new character. So that is on a character-to-character basis, earning that favor for points. It is not a one-time only thing. You can always, create a new character, get more favor, get more points, or reincarnate your current character to reset their favor and earn it again, which will give you those DDO points again. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So, all right, guys. So that's all the disclaimers I had to go through, but they're very important. So I really had to go through that before I went through these adventure packs to give you proper context and to not mislead you in any way. All right, so let's go ahead and just go through these packs in the store. So this is what you'll see if you go to the DDO store in game, and yeah, let's just go through them. So they're divided here by level: legendary level, low, mid, high, and then epic. So legendary levels is 30 and above. Right now, the cap is 32, so there's only levels. Basically, only two legendary levels. I think 30 as well is considered legendary levels. So there's not a whole lot of legendary content yet compared to the other tiers, but more will be coming. There's also here low levels, there's mid, and then high. Epic level, that refers to content from 20 to 29, and low, mid, and high don't really have a defined level tier. In DDO, basically heroic levels are considered 1 to 20, 20 to 30 is epics, 30 above is legendary essentially. All right, but let's go ahead and start with low levels, and be aware that it's less essential to buy as a new player like the lower level content, just because there's so much more so much free content. What you really need is, if you want to play past epic, you want to play above level 20, you need to make sure you get content with epic level support, because there's not really much, there's very little epic in-game or epic content that is free to play, as well as in-game content. Okay, so Isle of Dread is first. So Isle of Dread is the newest expansion in DDO. It released just over 6 months ago. So as of the recording of this video, they just put it into the DDO store for points. A lot of these expansion content, it does have a higher price because there's usually a lot more content in it. Also, they really want to incentivize you to buy it through the DDO market on DDO.com, as I explained earlier in this video. But anyways, Isle of Dread. So this is the most played content right now. It's very, very popular. The newest expansion has excellent gear. You really, I highly recommend you get this. If you want to jump into the current in-game, you'll want to get Isle of Dread. Its raid is the most run raid right now. It's very, very, very popular. Obviously, all the expansions are popular, except maybe like, well, even Menace of the Underdark, the oldest expansion, is still popular for epic leveling, but really, all the expansions they tend to have the best gear in the game. So Isle of Dread has some of the best gear in the game for sure. I wouldn't say it has the best. I would say probably the Sharn expansion probably is still overall the best gear, the most used gear, but it has extremely competitive in-game gear, extremely good gear. Some of the weapons, particularly you can get in this pack, are amazing. Currently, some of the best weapons in the game. So certainly a pack you may want to get in terms of expansion is pricier, of course. But as a new player, this does have lower level support, so level 7. But where it's really alive is the in-game scene. So level 33 is the in-game version. So not an adventure pack you need to get, or really an expansion you need to get right now as a new player. But if you want to play in the current endgame, you want to get this. But as a new player, you don't really need to worry about this too much until you get to endgame. Although, again, you can run it at low levels. Also, by the way, I'm going to go through these kind of fast because I don't want this to be a 2-hour video. So apologies if I skim over something. Or don't go as in depth as I could, or if I miss pointing out something in a pack, I will do my best though. Okay, next is the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. This is another expansion. This is DDO's, I believe, 5th expansion. So this came out prior to our Isle of Dread. It came out a few years ago. It has gear that's good, not as good as, say, overall in terms of power level. Most players would consider the gear from, say, like Isle of Dread, Feywild, and Sharn a little better, but it's pretty easy to acquire gear. It is a popular pack that is popular to run. It does have gear that's available, which is quite unique. It's available in 3 tiers. There's Heroic, Epic, minimum level 20 Epic, and in-game versions of all this gear. So even if it's not, say, like the best gear in the world, it's something that is pretty easy to acquire, and it still has some really, really nice gear in here. It doesn't have a raid, so Isle of Dread has one raid, whereas Saltmarsh does not have any. Does not have a raid. It also was labeled as a mini expansion, the first and only so far mini expansion in DDO. So it's one that you may want to get eventually, but it's not. It's definitely not as essential if you want to jump into endgame as, say, like Feywild or Sharn or Dread right now. But it's certainly something you may want to get eventually, but it's certainly not required. It has a saga, which I should have mentioned for Isle of Dread as well. Isle of Dread also has its own saga. So saga, basically what that means if you're a new player, if you run all the quests, it has a special in reward giver that will give you a big reward at the end after you run all the quests, and you can rerun this as many times as you want to reacquire the saga reward. But like, for example, in Saltmarsh, you can get a big chunk of XP as a saga reward. There's also, say, like ingredient rewards, things like that. But so the expansions or anything that has a saga is inherently a little more valuable because you can get just big XP chunks from that saga. So that's something important to consider. But yeah, Saltmarsh overall, good pickup, but not as essential as some of these other expansions. Okay, Feywild. Feywild is one of the newer expansions in DDO. I think it was, the 4th expansion, I think, in DDO. But Feywild, it's set in this, like, fairy tale-ish setting, and it's still very popular. The gear here is run quite often. Or the contents run very often in game still. It has a saga with it. It has a raid with still one of the more popular raids to be run, which is Dryad and Demigod. It does have heroic versions, so as a new player, you can jump into this content at level 5 and 6. It's not just run it in game, so it has a level 2, level 32 version in game, level 5 and 6 version at low heroic levels. But this is one that certainly is, I would say it's probably in the top 2 expansions that you should look to pick up right now on as a new player. I would say like this and Sharn are probably, it's top 3 at least. So this, Feywild, Sharn, and Isle of Dread are probably the top 3 expansions you want to get as of right now in DDO. And it also has a saga, as the other expansions do. Okay. Now we're going to get down to some non-expansion. So all the stuff we talked about so far, these are all expansions. So you have to, even if you're VIP, you don't get that. You got to buy that separately. Lost Gatekeepers is one of the first, one expansion pack, the first adventure pack, I guess, on our list. That's not an expansion. Anyways, Lost Gatekeepers. So it's a fairly new adventure pack. Gear is pretty good. It's run somewhat often. It's not a super essential pack. I mean, being fairly new, it does have pretty good gear in it. Although the gear, really the newer adventure pack is generally the better the gear is. So this is one that you may want to pick up eventually, and it does have a level 3 version. So as a new player, you could jump into this pretty soon. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's very essential as a new player, just because while it's run some, it doesn't have a saga attached to it. Its gear, while being really good, is not like the best gear in the game or anything. So it's kind of just leveling content that isn't exactly essential, especially at low levels. You don't need to buy any heroic level 3 content. There's plenty of that to run. That's free to play. So you don't. I would say like it's not a bad pack. It's just not that essential. Okay, Keep on the Borderlands. This is a really good purchase for a new player. So Keep on the Borderlands has level 1 versions and a epic level 21 version. So this is one of the first things you could consider buying as a new player. So Keep on the Borderlands, one really interesting thing about it is it does have mounts in it. So a mount is like a horse you can ride that increases your movement speed in public areas and in wilderness areas. You can't use it in quests, but you can farm out a mount in this pack as low as level 1. So that's a really attractive thing for this pack. Now there's some other ways now where you can get mounts. You can buy them in the DDO store. There's certain raids that, for example, like the Feywild raid, Drive the Demigod, that will drop them in the chest. But if it is still an attractive thing for Keep on the Borderlands, and it's not that hard to grind out a mount in Keep on the Borderlands, so it's a good reason to get that. Also, while it's heroic level 1, it has great gear for level 1, but getting great gear for the really low heroic levels like that isn't that important, just because you tend to fly through those levels so fast. But one thing it does have is really, really good loot for epics. So it's level 21 in epics, and it has awesome loot for that level. It's a very popular pack to get some, like a starting level 21 gear set for leveling in epics. So awesome gear here, a really good pickup. If one of the first packs I would say you should buy. I wouldn't say it's like the first pack you should buy, but as a new player, it's going to be up there on the list in terms of adventure packs you want to get. Okay, I'm not sure why this is just bonus items. This is not actually content, so we'll skip this. White Plume Mountain and Other Tales. So White Plume Mountain, this is based on the pen and paper modules. It's has heroic like level 6, 9, epic level 21, 23. So it's split up into different level ranges. The main appeal of this pack is the last quest, which is called also White Plume Mountain. This has some really nice gear in it, like a great sword called Black Razor, which is not like the best weapon in the game anymore, but it's still a really, really, really good weapon. You also have one of the most appealing things about this pack is White Plume Mountain drops sentient XP gems in chests. So a lot of people run this. Even now it's popular. Just the White Plume Mountain quest. Not really the Other Tales, but really just the end White Plume Mountain quest is very popular even now for people to run at endgame just to farm out sentient XP gems. So the way that works is there's something in DDO called sentient weapons, and if you can farm these gems that allow you to feed your sentient weapon to increase its XP, and that allows you to unlock additional slots in your sentient weapon to add these augments, or what they're called filigree, that give your sentient weapon extra abilities. Essentially, that's the simple way to explain it for you new players. So a lot of players will run it for that. One of the best ways to grind out sentient XP. So that's a good reason to buy it. So it's not like, I would say this is probably middle of the pack in terms of priority of things you should buy. There's certainly other ones that are higher. I would say Keep on the Borderlands is higher for sure, but it's a pretty good purchase. Something you might want to consider. Not super essential, but worth considering. Okay, let's move on here. So Devil Assault. Okay, Devil Assault is not a bad pickup here. It does have the raid, which is called the Chronoscope, which is one of DDO's oldest raids, but it's still very commonly run. It's a heroic and a epic level raid. It's not an in-game raid. It's a lower, like mid. I think it's like low epic level. I think it's around level 23 or so level raid. People will still run it though, because you can get what are things called greater tokens of the 12 by running the Chronoscope. It's also good XP, so that raid is pretty commonly run. Devil's Assault, you also get one quest with it that is also called Devil's Assault, which is fairly commonly run, just because a lot of people, even though it's not really the best method in my opinion, a lot of people like to run that quest to farm out things that are called tokens of the 12, which you need those in order to buy a heart of wood, which you use in DDO to reincarnate. So what that means, reincarnation in DDO means when you get to a certain level, and there's several different types of reincarnation, but for this type, you can use tokens to buy a heart of wood that allows you to turn your character from a level 20 character or above, if you'd like, all the way back down to a level 1 character in exchange for some extra abilities in the form of what's called a past life feat. So you can go from, say, level 20 all the way back to level 1, and you'll have to re-level your character, but you get a permanent power boost to your character in exchange for doing that. So that's one of the things that DDO is known for, is its reincarnation system, and I'm not gonna go too much into detail about that. You can go to ddowiki.com and just type in reincarnation if you want to read more about that, but that is something that's that this pack is popular for. So it's a fairly often run pack, both Devil's Assault and the Chronoscope. All right, so next is Tangleroot Gorge. So this is a heroic only pack. So it only has content in the level 3 to 7 range. So Tangleroot Gorge is really good XP. So it's very popular in that heroic level range. It's one of the more popular heroic packs. It also has a Death Ward thing that's called a Death Ward clicky, one of the piece of gear in it, so that lets you cast Death Ward on yourself if you're, say, like a fighter, a class, for example, that like a barbarian or something that doesn't have that spell inherently. It's a very, very good spell in DDO that protects you from instant death effects. So that's a good reason to get Tangleroot. It's one of the early, I believe it is the earliest way to access a Death Ward clicky. You all correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is. So it's good for that. So this is not a bad pickup. Again, do you need this as a new player? Not really, because there's so much content at low levels, from the 3 to 7 range. So it's not essential, but it's something you might want to pick up eventually, and it's a better pickup than a lot of these other packs, for the reasons I've stated. All right, so next is Sorrowdusk Isle. So this is a variety of quests in the 6 to 10 range. It takes place on, obviously, an island. I like this pack a lot personally, but it's not essential. It's not commonly run at all by the player base. A lot of people don't like it because you have to run from quest to quest, and not super long runs, but there are runs from quest to quest. There's also no epic or legendary level support. So this is definitely, while I personally really like this pack, it's not essential at all. So this should be on the bottom as a new player, the bottom of your list of packs to acquire. Okay, Shan Syndicate. This is another low-level adventure pack only. There's no epic or legendary support this is from levels 3 to 5. It's not essential at all. Definitely, this should be at the bottom of your list. There's really nothing notable about this pack. It's cool to have extra stuff to run at low epic or low heroic levels, but as I said before, there is so much heroic content at this level range that you absolutely don't need to buy this. There's nothing really notable gear-wise from here either. So yeah, pass on this one. Unless you just want it and you kind of have everything else. But this should be on the low in your priorities list. Okay, Necro Part 1. Good XP here, but this same thing I'm going to say, it really applies for Necropolis Parts 1 to 3. So there are 4 parts to the Necropolis, Part 1, 2, 3, and 4. Parts 1 to 3 are very unpopular quests. A lot of players don't like these quests. A lot of them are pretty cryptic. They often are not very solo-friendly. But the XP is good, but they're very, very uncommon to see people running them. So they're very unpopular packs. So considering that, plus there's plenty of other content in these level ranges, I can't recommend this. Even though it is pretty good, the lower Necropolis quests, if you know what you're doing, are pretty good or very good XP. But I can't recommend it. So put this on the low end of your priorities list as a new player. All right, Delera's Tomb. This has quests from levels 5 to 11. It also fairly recently, I think it was 2 years ago or so, 3 years ago or so, got an epic level support. So they added epic support for it. So this is a very popular pack, both in really, especially in heroics. I don't think as popular in epics because it doesn't have a saga attached to it. But it is still pretty popular in epics, very, very popular in heroics. But it's very popular because it has one of the best pieces of loot in the game, which is called the Voice of the Master. And if you run in epics, you can also get the epic Voice of the Master, which is it doesn't really matter. It's pretty much the same thing because it has the same trait, which is while it's equipped, you gain plus 5% XP, which is amazing to have. It's one thing you'll see in DDO as you play, when you get close to the end of a quest, it's very common in public groups for someone to say, okay, everyone put your voices on. So when they say put your voices on, this is what they're referring to. They're referring to put on your Voice of the Master because you want to equip that item before the quest finishes so you get that plus 5% XP, because all the XP, except for XP that you get from optionals, the main bulk of your XP from any quest is going to be you are granted upon completing it. So before completing, you want to put your voice on or put your Voice of the Master on so you get that XP. So That's a must-have piece of gear if you want to get into DDO long term. You got to have that because that's a bonus that stacks with everything. So yeah, definitely recommend this one. It's going to be higher on your list of priorities in terms of pickups as a new player. You know, you get that voice in addition to getting a lot of some additional epic content to run, even though there are, as I've said before, a lot of options for free to play at the lower levels. Okay, Sharn Syndicate, not really that necessary. It's only a level 4 quest series, a very small amount of quests. I mean, granted, this is reflected in the price, but it's just not that essential. There's no epic support, tons of other free-to-play options at this level, so I would put this on the lower end of your priorities list as a new player. Okay, the Catacombs. The Catacombs recently got, as well, several years ago, along with Epic Delera's, got some epic level support. So this is a quest with has level 3 to 4, and also epic support as well. There's no saga attached to this. It's not. I don't think it's as popular as a lot of epic content. Some pretty good gear for your like mid to mid high epic levels. But not like it doesn't have anywhere close to the best gear in the game. And at low levels, you don't need it. There's so much content from level 3 to 4 that's free. So this is not like at the very bottom of your priorities list. I wouldn't say that as a new player, but it's somewhere in the middle of your priorities list is where I would put it. It's not. It's nice to have the epic content, so that's really the best thing this pack has going for it. But not essential, and there's better choices for epic content, I think. Okay, House Peak Carnival. This is a level 5 quest series. It also has low epic level support. So I think these are in the low or epic level ranges. So like the low 20s, there is epic support for this. No, there is no like wilderness area here. There's also no saga attached to this. So this is good content to have because it gives you low epic level content, but it's not near as essential as some other epic content. It's nice to have though, but it's just not. It's something that's run somewhat often, but it's not super essential. So I would put this somewhere in the middle of your list in terms of priorities to buy. Three Barrel Cove. So Three Barrel Cove is a really nice one to have. This has low heroic version content from 4 to 7, also mid epic level support. So not all the quests, but a lot of the quests have mid epic versions. So this is does have a saga attached to it, along with the House Deneth pack, which we haven't gotten to yet. But this does have a really one of the best items in the game is in the Three Barrel Cove pack. The epic Three Barrel Cove pack specifically is the Curse Blade of Jack Gibbers, which is a really powerful item. It lets you self-raise. So if you die, you can raise yourself from the dead, even in a raid with that item. And it's a very low drop rate, but it is only included in a quest here in Three Barrel Cove. So this is one that you should put, I wouldn't say it's like the highest priority, but as a new player, if you're getting into DDO long term, you'll definitely want that Gibbers Blade. And this is attached to a saga. So it's, I would say, not like the highest, but it's up there on your list of priorities. It's also pretty popular to be run. One thing about these quests, it's like a pirate theme as well. It's also quests that, keep in mind, there's some quests in here like Prove Your Worth, Ghost of a Chance as well, that have some pretty deadly traps. So it's one quest series that really helps to have a rogue along with you. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's jump now to mid-levels. All right, so Hunter and Hunted Adventure Pack. All right, so Hunter and Hunted, this is one of the newest. I think it is, it's the second newest, actually, quest pack in DDO as of the recording of this video. So this pack has 2 quests and a raid. There's a level 7 version of the quests and a level 32 version of the quests and the raid. There's no level 7 version of the raid. The main reason to get this pack, no one really runs the quests at all. They have some pretty good gear, but they're not part of a saga. You just don't need the quests. But the main reason to get this is the Hunt or Be Hunted raid, which is a very popular raid right now. It has some really nice gear in it. So that's the main reason to have this. It's one of the most commonly run raids. So if you want to get into endgame, you want to get this pack eventually, especially right now. I mean, that raid is run all the time right now. So this is one, somewhere in the middle of your list as a new player, something you'll need to get eventually if you want to get into the endgame. Okay, so Peril of the Planar. This is a fairly new adventure pack. This, I would say, is going to be kind of on the middle of your list in terms of priority. It's run somewhat often. There's a level 12 version and a level 32 version. There's no saga attached to this. The gear is good, but not like the best gear in the game or anything. So it's a pack that it's nice to have, but it's not, I don't think, as essential as other packs. Also, considering it's level 12 heroic, and there's still a good amount of content in that level range. So somewhere in the middle of your priorities list in terms of pickups. Okay, next is the Shadowfell Conspiracy. So this is an expansion, so you can get this in the DDO.com market as well. This is Shadowfell is considered the least. It's considered the worst expansion, I think, by most, at least in terms of the full expansions, not including the mini expansion of Saltmarsh. It wasn't. It's still run a lot because it does have a saga. It has sagas attached to it, so that's a good reason to run it. However, all the gear is really outdated here, so you're not really going to use any of it. But you know, I would say in terms of expansions, this should probably be at the bottom of your list in terms of priorities to buy. So something you may want to get eventually, but Shadowfell is definitely going to be on the bottom end of your priorities list because again, the gear isn't really needed, although it does have a saga attached to it. But I would say the other expansions also with sagas are going to be higher on your priority list to get. Okay, Trials of the Archons. This has level 13 versions and level 30 versions. The main reason to get this pack is it has the Defiler of the Just raid, which is not anywhere near the most popular raids run right now, but it is run sometimes. I wouldn't say it's not a raid that's never run because there's some really nice gear that can be turned into augments from that raid, which is why people still run it currently. So yeah, it's I would say this kind of on the middle of your priorities list just because it does have that raid that is still sometimes run, but definitely not one of the most pressing purchases, I would say, as a new player. Okay, Temple of the Elemental Evil. This adventure pack has in-game versions at level 34 and a level 8 heroic version. Heroic, you're not going to really need to dip into here. Again, level 8 heroic, there's tons of free content. This adventure pack was very recently, just this year, revamped, and they changed it. It used to be 2 really long quests, and now they changed it into, I believe, 7 smaller sections. So it's definitely better than it used to be, but it's not essential. I mean, a lot of the gear, it does have really good in-game gear in here now, but it's not like in the tier of, say, like Feywild or Sharn. I don't think most people consider it's kind of that it's in that category, but still good gear, and it has set bonuses in the gear as well. So look at the gear. Look at the gear. If you're getting in game and you want some of the gear, maybe consider buying this. But I don't think it's like should be at the top of your list because there's not like an item from this pack that's like, oh, I must have this, say like the Voice of the Master from Delera's or something, or the Jack Jibber's Blade through Cove. It doesn't have anything like that where it's like I gotta have this item, but it's probably somewhere in the middle of your priorities list. It's still not commonly run. I don't see hardly anyone run this despite it getting revamped. Okay, the Demon Sands. So the Demon Sands is a really nice one to own just because it does have epic versions and legendary versions, or not legendary versions, I'm sorry, epic versions, not legendary version. So Sands has one really good item. So kind of like we mentioned before with the Voice from Delera's or the Jack Jibber's Blade from through Cove, Demon Sands has the Ring of Spell Storing, which they recently made it way easier to acquire. You can basically just farm the chests in the wilderness area to get bronze tokens to purchase it. So what the Ring of Spell Storing does, and there's an epic version and a legendary version, so you can have up to 2 in your character's inventory, but it's basically a regenerating spell point clicky. So the epic, beware, it's not usable until after level 20 because there's only 2 versions of it. Well, there is a heroic version of it, but what really people use it for, so actually I'll take back what I said, you can use it lower, but the really good versions of it is when you upgrade it to the epic or the legendary version because you can get lots of spell points, basically turns it into a clicky. So you can click on that 3 times per rest for the epic version, 5 times per rest for the legendary version, and you get your spell points replenished, a big chunk of them. So it's basically an endless spell point pot. So for that reason, you may want Demon Sands. Also, you get tons of quests, and there's level 10 to 12 versions, and there's also epic versions. So it also has a raid with it, which is it hasn't been. It's still it's kind of out of date in terms of like it's not a challenge. It's not an in-game raid at all. But it still has some nice stuff to farm and from that raid. So there's even things like the The torque of Prince Raman or Rahim, I don't know how to say it, but the torque is like another spell point regeneration item, which is still, not amazing, as good as it used to be, but it's an item that basically every time you get hit, you get a little bit of spell points back. So that's a really good item as well. So this is a good purchase, Demon Sands. So I wouldn't say this is like at the top of your list, but it's up there. Definitely should be higher than middle on your list of stuff to acquire. Okay, let's tack on Stormreach. This adventure pack is only level 13. Really nice quests. I mean, I think these are very favorably looked at by the player base. They're really fun quests. One of the best stealth quests in the game, for example, is in this pack. So it's very well liked quests in terms of how fun they are, but in terms of practical reasons to own it, not any super essential gear here, nothing like that. I mean, it's not essential to get this. It is level 13, and you're starting to get to the point where content becomes a little bit less common that's free, but it's just not, considering it has no epic or legendary version, it's not going to be that higher in list, so probably on the lower end of your list, although it's not the worst purchase you could make. Okay, Necropolis Part 2 and 3 we already talked about, but same deal here. I mean, there's some good XP from these packs, but no like must-have loot, and it's very uncommonly run, so I can't really recommend these. I would put these on the bottom end of your list. Also, Necro Part 3 has some quests, like there's a quest where you get to guide a rat around a maze that is just absolutely hated by players. There's a lot of quests in here that really are not liked. I mean, these are not the most solo friendly quests in the world. So, and they're, again, as I said before, the Necropolis stuff up until Necro Part 4 is an exception, but as far as Parts 1 through 3, they're not very commonly run, especially considering all of these. 2 is levels 8 to 9, 3 is levels 11 to 12. There's still a lot of options, even up to level 12. There's still a lot of options for quest content. So definitely not must-have stuff here. Okay, Restless Isles. This should be on the very bottom of your list. There's really this is probably the least liked adventure pack in the entire game. It's the most, in my opinion, the most cryptic in terms of some of its mechanics, like getting to quests or flagging for the raid. There is a raid here, but the raid is never run by players. It's very out of date. So I would say this should be on the bottom of your list. Don't buy Restless Isles unless you just want to buy it as a curiosity. Runes of Gianthold. This is a great content for your money. There are tons of quests in this pack. There are 2 raids, Fall of Truth, and there's also an additional to Fall of Truth. There's a heroic raid as well. Fall of Truth is not commonly run at all. Occasionally you'll see people run it for combinations of heroism, but it's not, which is a item you can use for certain. We won't get into that, but it's a item you can use for certain crafting. But it's still very uncommon to see people run Fall of Truth. The heroic raid, no one really runs that either. So the raids are kind of dead in terms of popularity, but the content is still very much alive. It's very, very popular content in heroics and in epics is leveling content. There's also a saga, heroic and epic saga attached to these as well. So this is really good content to own, just really good leveling content. I mean, level 13 to 14, you start to get to the point where content becomes less common and heroic, and additionally, you get tons of quests with this pack, and it's all available in epic. So this should be in the top half of your list in terms of priorities to get. It's one of the best just in terms of amount of quests for your money. It's a really good pickup. There's just a lot of quests that are commonly run. Ruins of Threnal. I think this is probably the second most hated adventure pack in the game, after Restless Isles. These quests, there's a mechanic where you got to escort an NPC called Coil, which people have been making fun of for years because the AI on him is not great. It can still bug out. So it's just, these quests aren't great. I will say though, there is one piece of gear called the Mantle of the World Shaper that comes from Threnal. And or Threnal, I guess I should actually pronounce it right. But there is one piece of gear called the Mantle of the World Shaper that comes from this, which you can actually stick that Mantle of the World Shaper in a crafting device with the Voice of the Master that we previously talked about from Delera's Tomb. And what that does is it turns your Voice of a Master it takes it from an item that you have to equip, and it turns it into an augment that you can put on a different piece of gear. So that prevents you, if you have that it's called the Master's Gift once you craft it into augment form, but it basically gets you that plus 5% XP bonus, and it can let you put that on any item you want. So that's a nice convenience thing, because if you have that augment, you can actually put that plus 5% XP on a piece of gear that you don't have to worry about equipping and unequipping when you get to the end of every quest. So it's really nice to have for that reason, for convenience. So I will solely say for that reason that this is not, despite the quest being not liked by players, it's still, I would say, probably like in the middle of the pack in terms of priorities to buy for that reason. Just to get the Master's Gift. But that's really the only reason, because these quests are not liked. They're very uncommon to see run unless someone wants to get the Mantle of the World Shaper or Favor, and there's not any epic or legendary support. It's only level 8 to 10, and as I said before, there's still a lot of free-to-play content in that range, so you don't need to worry too much about it. All right, Sentinels of Stormreach. This has content in the level 6 to 8 range, as shown here, but it also has content in the low epic level range. In this adventure pack shares a saga with 3 Barrel Cove. So these are pretty commonly run, and you get a decent amount of quests for your money. I mean, you get low epics, and you get, it's only 450 points as well. But again, as I said before, 6 to 8, you don't really need content for that range. There's a lot of free-to-play content. And in terms of epic content to have, this is like the lowest epic content there is, pretty much. It's minimum level 20, I think these quests are. So yeah, it's a nice one to buy solely for the saga for 3 Barrel Cove, but it's definitely not something to be at the top of your priorities list. Like for low epics, I would definitely get, say, like Keep on the Borderlands before I would get Sentinels of Stormreach, because Keep on the Borderlands has better loot. Even though they did update not just the loot in this pack, but a lot of the packs, the low epic level packs, or things with minimum level 20. A lot of these older Eberron packs, they did update fairly recently. They updated the Scroll Seal Shard system to give new, like, minimum level 20 epic gear for a lot of these packs, but still, I would go with other epic level choices over this, something like Keep on the Borderlands, or something like even Gianthold, just because you'll get a lot of content with Gianthold, even though I guess this is like a lower price, so you gotta keep that in mind as well. Okay, Red Fens, this is another one. It has level 9 quests, versions of these quests. It also has low epic versions of these quests as well. As far as epic quests, it's nice to have a quest pack that has both heroic and epic versions, but this is not like the most commonly run at all. It's run sometimes, but it's not super common. So I'd say this maybe on the middle or lower middle in terms of priorities on your list of stuff to buy. It's not that essential. It's not super commonly run either. Okay, Vault of Night. Vault of Night is a really, should be on the top half of your list for sure of stuff to buy. It's very commonly run, some of the most popular content in DDO. So you have a bunch of quests from levels 7 to 10. This also has epic versions of the content, and kind of like Gianthold, this is great content to have just for leveling. Yeah, 7 to 10, you still have other free-to-play content run in this range, but it's very popular pack. Even the raid, there is one raid in this pack, which is still run today. Not as common as, like, say, Hunter Be Hunted or some of the other in-game raids, but it's still very commonly run raid. There's an item called the Sword of Shadow, which is basically the best two-handed fighting weapon you can get for leveling. Not for in-game, but it's basically one of the best, if not the best two-handed weapon in the game for your epic levels and your heroic levels. So that's a good reason to buy it. It's very popular. So yeah, this is one of the better purchases. Not the highest on your list, but one that's up there. It doesn't have, say, like a saga or anything. That's like the one thing that's going against it, but it's still a good buy. All right, so Dragonblood Prophecy. These quests, it has a few quests along with 2 raids. The quests are very, very uncommonly run. No one ever runs the quests. One of the raids, which is called Riding the Storm Out, is very unpopular, even though it's not super new, but it's somewhat new raid, but it was very much disliked by players, and the loot isn't that great, so it's hardly ever run. It does have one raid in it, though. Killing Time is still one of the most popular raids in DDO. Not like, I wouldn't put it in the top 3 or 4 or 5 or anything, but it's up there. It's still run a lot. So that's a good reason to own it. So if you want to get into in-game, you'll want to get this eventually. I wouldn't say it's not like your top choice for in-game, but it's I would probably put this pack somewhere in the middle of your priorities list, just solely because of Killing Time. No one runs the other content, but Killing Time is still run. All right, so now let's get into high-level stuff. All right, so Grip of the Hidden Hand. This is the newest adventure pack as of the recording of this video. This is the newest adventure pack to come out. So it has heroic level 16, legendary level 33 quests. Very up-to-date loot. Obviously, it's not like the best loot in the game. This gear doesn't have any like heroic or it doesn't have any set bonuses, I should say. And also, by the way, I just did a review of this video, so type in Axel DDO Grip of the Hidden Hand or something if you want to see a more in-depth review of this adventure pack. But essentially, it's the newest pack in the game. There is one really good piece of gear. It has a heroic and an epic version that a lot of people like this pack for, which is the 13, which is a bastard sword, which with like I think has 7 augment slots in it. So it's a really nice bastard sword. That's probably the best reason to buy this pack. But also, it does have heroic and legendary versions. So that it being new, plus it having level 16 versions, which definitely free-to-play content is sparse in that area. This is one of the better pickups right now for adventure packs. So I would put it, not the thing you should buy like right now, but it's definitely in the top part of your list in terms of priorities. Very popular right now, although I don't know like several months from now if it'll be as popular, just because there's not a saga attached to this, and the loot is not like in the same level as the expansion loot. But just considering as a player, it does have 16 and 33 level versions. 16 in particular is a really nice pickup, and it's brand new, so that makes it a pretty good pickup. Price is a little bit higher though because it is new. Soul Splitter adventure pack. This is the adventure pack that goes along with the expansion, the Sharn expansion. It's not required to own the Sharn expansion to buy or play this content. Pretty good gear here. We don't see, it's not as good as the gear in the main Sharn expansion. So, and this adventure pack isn't that commonly run anymore. It doesn't have, say, a saga attached to it. So I would say put this on like the lower end of your priorities, just because there's not really any super compelling reason to run it. Some of these quests are also pretty long and pretty confusing. So it's not, so yeah, I wouldn't recommend you go out of your way to buy this. Something maybe you want to get eventually, but it's not super essential. Okay, Masterminds of Sharn. This is a absolute must buy. Whether you're in heroic or legendary, this is one of the, in terms of expansions, I would say this along with Isle of Dread are really, probably this is even higher than Isle of Dread in terms of priorities to get. So again, you might look in the DDO.com market, DDO.com, to buy the market version of this if you'd like. This does go on sale from time to time, but Sharn still probably has the best loot overall in the game. Like Sharn sets, there's 3-piece sets in Sharn that are still worn by many players at in-game. You could probably maybe argue some other, you could argue like Feywild, Isle of Dread, what has the better loot, but it's still, it's way up there, and it's a must buy. It also has level 15 versions of content that's very commonly run with amazing heroic level gear as well, that a lot of people wear from even 15 all the way up to cap when they're leveling. Like, it's amazing heroic gear, amazing legendary gear, extremely popular. So yeah, definitely buy this one. It also has 2 sagas in it, 2. One for the mainline quest chain and one for the Cogs quest chain, which is like a underground separate chain of quests. So 2 sagas, amazing gear, extremely popular. The only thing that's not, like, the 2 raids are not as commonly run as other in-game raids right now. And I personally am not a big fan really of the Sharn raids, just in terms of like fun, but they are there. It just have 2 raids with it as well. They are run sometimes, but yeah, that's really the only knock I have against Sharn, is I'm not a big fan of the raids. But still, it's this is an absolute must buy. So it should be on the very top of your list, I would say, in terms of like things to buy, because it really is still very important in the in game. Still incredibly amazing gear in heroics. So yeah, you definitely want to get Sharn. Okay, Mines of Tethyamar. This should be on the bottom of your list. It does have a level 15 and 31 version, so I would put it on the very bottom of your list, because it is nice to have more content at level 15 for a new player. But these are unpopular quests. A lot of people didn't like. There's a lot of drow. It's kind of a drow filled pack, and they have like high spell resistance. A lot of players didn't like that. A lot of players just don't like these quests. They're pretty difficult quests as well. So yeah, while it is nice to have more level 15 content, definitely there's other better options, I think. So things like definitely get Grip of the Hidden Hand over, which is a pretty similar level range. You would 100% want to get Grip of the Hidden Hand, for example, over this pack. over the Mines of Tethyamar, which is a pretty similar split in terms of heroic and legendary levels, with better gear as well in the grip and the hidden hand. So yeah, definitely don't buy Mines of Tethyamar quite yet. I mean, if you want to get eventually, cool, but it's definitely in the lower half of your priorities list. Okay, Mr. Ravenloft. So this is another expansion. This was a DDO's third expansion. This content is considered by most players, not all players, but most players consider this to be, in terms of content design, fun, immersion, the best content in the game. I would rank it still probably as the best expansion that DDO's ever done. Again, it is an expansion. It has amazing loot in it, amazing heroic loot. They did update the loot fairly recently, so it has very competitive. It's not in the same tier overall as like Sharn or Feywild, I wouldn't say, but it's extremely competitive with that loot, and still some really nice gear. Has two of the best raids DDO's ever made. So like Curse of Strahd and Baba's Hut. Well, I wouldn't put Baba's Hut as terms of the best content ever made, but I think the Curse of Strahd in particular is one of the best raids DDO's ever made in terms of just content immersion design, raid design. And both of those raids are still pretty commonly run in in-game right now, despite this being a expansion from I think 2017. So yeah, so definitely one you want to pick up eventually. It also has a saga with it, so that's really nice to have, as all expansions have sagas. So yeah, really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. There's also as a heroic, in heroics, there's a free weapon you can get, which is really valuable on a first life like play character. It's one of the best weapons you can get, considering it's free. You get a free weapon in this pack that's really, really good. After you complete the Into the Mist quest, there's a NPC in the wilderness area that just gives you this weapon. It's really, really good. If you're on like a free to play player who's starting first life and needs a really good weapon, and you can get a weapon of any type. So yeah, very, very nice. You can also grind the saga for sentient gems. You get a free sentient gem as well with this pack. So yeah, a lot of good reasons to get Ravenloft. Okay, let's continue on. Menace of the Underdark content packs. Okay, Menace of the Underdark. This is the first expansion DDO ever released. I would rank it as like, it's definitely a top 3 expansion in my opinion. I would probably still put this at number 2, although that's debatable now with Isle of Dread. I really like Isle of Dread a lot as well. But this basically, Menace of the Underdark, it is epic only, so you have epic versions of the content. It does take place in Forgotten Realms. All the gear, however, in Menace of the Underdark is really outdated. So, except for maybe some of the caught in the web weapons that are still used a lot, but pretty much all the quest gear is really outdated. So, it's not great in that regard. I will say, I think Menace of the Underdark is like some of the best content there is in terms of just immersion, fun. You really go on this like epic quest, through all this content, through Forgotten Realms. It was made at the peak of DDO's popularity. There is a ton of content with this. You get, I think, let me see, 1, 2, 3 wilderness areas, I believe, unless I'm forgetting one, or it might be 4. I'm trying to remember, but you get a ton of wilderness areas. You get one raid, which isn't that great, caught in the web, but you get a lot of low epic level, leveling content. So it's really nice. And yeah, I mean, it's too bad the gear is outdated. But it's still a really popular thing to be run because it has multiple sagas in it as well. So yeah, so it's a good pickup. Also be aware that this is offered in the DDO.com store along with Ravenloft and Shadowfell in kind of an expansion bundle. I think they charge $60 for it or so for all 3. So keep that in mind. You can buy it in a bundle with the first the Shadowfell and the Ravenloft expansions all in one if you'd like to. So you can go on the DDO.com store for that. Okay, Disciples of Rage. This content's fairly new. It's somewhat popular for leveling. I see people run it actually somewhat often. Some of the gear here is a little outdated compared to other in-game gear. It's not like anywhere close to being like the best gear in the game, but it's for whatever reason it seems to be somewhat common. To be run. You do get level 14, where that's where content starts to trail off a little bit. For free to play. So it's not a bad pickup. I would say put this in like the middle of your list or so. Okay, Shadowfell Conspiracy we already talked about. The Devil's Gambit. So the Devil's Gambit, this includes a few packs or a few quests that are located in different areas of Eberron. So this does have level 14 versions and level 30 versions. So one thing about this content is it is somewhat fairly commonly run, because it does have Grim and Barret, which a lot of people for whatever reason like to run to farm Reaper XP, because it's kind of an easy, it's a good Reaper XP for the challenge, I guess you should say. So it's pretty common even still to see people run Devil's Gambit, just that one quest a lot, but it's not like essential content by any means. The gear is pretty good, but not like the best in the game by any means. So it's one of these, I wouldn't put it on the bottom of your list, but I wouldn't say probably not in the top half. Against the Slave Lords, this content I really am not a fan of personally. It has level 8 versions, level 31 versions. It's it has craftable gear that used to be like the thing to have, but it's not nearly as good as it used to be, and a lot of people don't like against the Slave Lords because there's the mob density. There's a lot of monsters in this pack. It feels kind of like a slog to go through, so I wouldn't really recommend this. The gears might be good for some characters still, but it's not commonly run anymore. It's pretty unpopular. So yeah, I would put this on the lower end of your priorities list. Okay, Reign of Madness, level 17 quests, probably in the lower end as well. There's no epic or legendary versions, although it is level 17 where you need some more content. It's a Zoriat themed pack. It's just not very common to see this run. Definitely in the lower end of your priorities list, because again, it's just it only has one version of the content. There's not really any must-have gear here, and it's not that popular. Okay, Vale of Twilight. So this has still really good heroic gear. So this was one of the most popular historically packs in DDO. You still see things like Legendary Shroud, which is still run fairly often. There's Heroic Shroud, which still, if you farm that, you still get some really good green steel items that can give you things like Raised Dead Clickies, Displacement Clickies. So some really good gear, and you can still get from Heroic. You can also get like Nano level 11, really nice weapons and things you can't craft from the Heroic version. There's also 2 raids. It's not as essential as it used to be, because there are some raids included with this, like Legendary Hound of Zoriat and Vision of Destruction, which are actually free. They made legendary versions of those that are free. The heroic versions, I believe, are still locked behind this adventure pack paywall, but you don't have to buy this to play the legendary versions. So, and those are 2 very commonly run raids, but again, those are free to play raids now, the legendary versions. So this isn't essential as it used to be, but yeah, if you want to craft legendary green steel stuff, and there's still legendary green steel gear that's still very good. I mean, it's like minimum level 26 or so. Legendary green steel stuff, it still has some great effects on it. Really good gear for casters specifically. So yeah, this is probably in like the middle of your middle to actually probably top 25%, I would say, of priority lists of things to buy. It does have level 16 to 7 versions of the content. So, well, most of the content. There's a couple of things. Well, actually, yeah, it does have, I think, level 16 to 17 versions of all the content, but it's very commonly run the 16 to 17 range. There's a couple of like epic quests like Creeping Death and one other that are not as commonly run as the heroic stuff, but it's really good leveling stuff to have heroic. So yeah, good content to buy, just because it has 2 versions, and you do get the level 16 to 7, which is commonly run. Now that heroic, a lot of the heroic quests, however, they don't have epic versions. It's just there's like 2 separate epic quests that you need to do to flag for Legendary Shroud, but level 16 to 17 stuff is heroic only, but it is nice content to have. It is commonly run. Okay, Harbinger of Madness, level 15. It's another Zoriat themed pack. Not really that common to see run. It is level 15 only, so I would put this on the bottom half of your parties list, just because it's no epic legendary versions, no saga, nothing like that. So it's not super essential. Okay, Devils of Shavarath. This used to be in game, and level 20 was in game, but it's very uncommon to see people run this nowadays, because it's in that level range, like 19 to 20, where people just don't run this content. It's very difficult content if running it at level. It has raid with it, Tower of Despair, that's never run anymore because it doesn't have an updated version. It's still only a like a heroic, or a like a what was in game heroic version. It doesn't have an updated version for things now. So you can pretty much put this on the bottom half of your list, just because the loot's all very outdated. The raid is never run anymore, so I wouldn't worry about this. There's just especially in this level range. A lot of people just want to start to run epic stuff. A lot of people don't even spend much time at level 19 because they want to get straight to level 20. So they'll just go straight from 18 to 20 after they bank a level. So this is just not very commonly run. Reaver's Reach. While I like this pack personally, this is very, very uncommon content to see run. It's a little cryptic with the flagging for Stealer of Souls, which is like the capstone quest in this pack. I do think it's cool immersion wise, and there's a bunch of different wilderness areas. I think there's 4 wilderness areas in this pack, albeit they are small, but it's just not hardly ever run. I just can't recommend it. This should be one of the last packs you pick up. Also, all the gear is outdated. Path of Inspiration, another one that's going to be at the bottom of your list in terms of priorities. Hardly ever run, sometimes run, but not very often run. It's in that 17 to 19 range. There's no epic or legendary versions of this stuff. So just, yeah, not very commonly run, no must-have gear. Necropolis Part 4, this is a really good one to pick up. I would have put this I wouldn't put it at the very top, but it's higher up on your list of things you might want to look to buy just because it does have 14 to 17 level ranges for the content, which is where this stuff does trail off. Some people still run Abbot because there is one really nice piece of striding gear that's minimum level 1 that a lot of people still like to run Abbot for. There's also a epic raid Mark of Death included in Necropolis Part 4. This content does have epic versions and level 14 to 17 versions. So it's pretty common. It doesn't have a saga attached to it, so it's not. I wouldn't say it's as popular in epics as other content, but it's really popular in heroics and it's still popular in epics. So yeah, it's in good gear too. I mean, for the minimum level, still good gear if you want to use it for epic TR, epic reincarnation and such. So yeah, higher on your list. You can definitely do a lot worse than buying Necro Part 4. Definitely, if you buy any of the Necropolis packs, for sure buy Part 4 before you buy parts 1 to 3. Dreaming Dark, similar situation here to like Path of the Inspiration. Same stuff applies. Outdated gear, very uncommon to see people run this. No epic legendary versions, no sagas, so this should be on the bottom of your priorities list. Secrets of the Artificers. All right, so this is a good pickup for a couple reasons. It's not commonly run at all, and it only has epic versions. Although some of the raids there are legendary versions of the 2 raids here, which is Master Artificer and Lord of Blades, do have legendary versions now. So one thing about Secret of the Artificers is you need it to unlock the Artificer class. You need the favor from this. So if you want to unlock Artificer, you'll have to own this House Cannith pack. There's also one nice piece of gear, which is the Cannith Boots Propulsion here, which basically gives you an ability, a clicky that allows your character to shoot forward. Now, some classes like Favorite Soul don't need this because they get that ability inherently, but if you're a class that doesn't get that inherently, it's a really nice piece of gear to have. So yeah, it's a pretty good pickup. I wouldn't put it at the top of your list, but it's definitely should be in the top half of your priorities list as a new player. Druid's Deep. This is part of a saga, so it does have a saga attached to it, along with some of the Underdark content. And it is in the level 17 heroic range and low epic level range, so it's in a good range for where there isn't a lot of heroic content, and it is pretty commonly run in epics as well, just because of the saga. So yeah, so a pretty good pickup. Not like the highest on your priorities list, but it should be up there. This is definitely a really good pickup in terms of just having good content for leveling. Be aware the saga though does have other content packs attached to it as well, so you can't fully benefit from the saga unless you own those other things. High Road, similar to Druid's Deep, is part of a saga along with some of the Motu and Shadowfell stuff. It is part of a saga. It doesn't have its own saga, but it is part of a saga. Also, like Druid's Deep, it's pretty commonly run. It has a really good pretty good level range. I mean, level 18. You see a lot of other stuff run it. There's high epics like Vale. A lot of people will run it like level 18 instead, or stuff like Sharn. But it's nice to have this option here. Although kind of the same thing applies as like Dreaming Dark, though, and some of these others that a lot of people will opt for other content at that level range. But it is good to pick. It's better than like Dreaming Dark for sure, just because it does have epic versions and it's part of a saga. So it's good for that reason. Heart of Madness, this content, it does have heroic level 18 and epic versions, but I would definitely get something like High Road over this. simply because it's more commonly, High Road's more commonly run. High Road has a saga attached to it where this isn't, and the Heart of Madness is just hardly ever run. I can't really recommend it for that reason. Okay, let's get to legendary content. A lot of this stuff is repeats. This might all be repeats, actually. So I think we've covered all of this. We covered Feywild. I think we covered Feywild, didn't we? I think Feywild was covered here. I think in the low heroic. Yeah, we already covered Feywild. We covered Sharn. We covered Saltmarsh. Let's see. I think we covered everything. Yeah. Yeah, guys, I think that's it. So guys, that's as quick as I could make it, review every adventure pack. Please comment below. Let me know what you think. If I missed anything, if I made any mistakes, please correct me below in the comments. I'll put a pinned comment if I did make any mistakes, in this video. So you might want to check below for that. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for this video. And hope you enjoyed. And if you are a new player, do me a favor, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Check out my other content. So I'll put a link below to other new player videos I've made, and you can just go to my YouTube homepage. I have hundreds of videos, and I still upload regularly for DDO. So yeah, guys, that's gonna be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Take care.